From the 11 Alive studios, this is The Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. The transition team for President-elect Donald Trump continues to take shape.
And his second administration, it could include a well-known Georgian. The president-elect tapped former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins as his nominee to be the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Collins served 5 terms in the House and also served in the military during the Iraq War. Another selection, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. President-elect Trump has tapped him as the nominee for Health and Human Services Secretary. Kennedy mounted his own third-party bid for president this year before withdrawing and throwing his support behind Mr. Trump. The president-elect also dipped into his current home state of Florida, tapping Senator Marco Rubio as his pick for Secretary of State and former Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. A few other notable picks, North Dakota governor and former rival for the Republican nomination, Doug Burgum, as Interior Secretary, and South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary. But none of this is a done deal. The Senate has to vote to approve these presumptive nominees before they can officially take office.
Now, along with Doug Collins, could we see more Georgia faces in a new Trump administration? Well, our Doug Richards with the 11 Alive political team examines some state Republicans who could get that call to D.C.
This week, President-elect Trump named Florida Senator Marco Rubio his Secretary of State. In 2020, Rubio introduced U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler at a campaign event in Marietta. Loeffler is on Trump's inaugural committee and could get another position within the second Trump administration.
The way people look at these opportunities is, number one, they don't come along every day.
Georgia Republican Chairman Josh McKoon could also draw Trump's eye after leading the Georgia Republican Party to impressive wins last week. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is a Trump favorite. The fiery Northwest Georgia Congresswoman has a high profile in Congress. A desk job may or may not tempt her if it's offered. Nick Ayers of Georgia has a much lower public profile. After he became chief of staff for then Vice President Mike Pence, Trump offered Ayers the same job in the White House, and Ayers turned him down. Will Trump give him another chance?
This is something that I would consider, absolutely, more than likely.
Dunwoody jeweler Bruce Lavelle did take a job in Trump's last administration promoting small business. Lavelle told us it would be tempting to get a chance to keep at a job that he thinks ended too quickly.
Part of me has this unfinished business in me, too. There's something that we just didn't get to finish.
Obviously, any opportunity to serve is something you've got to take seriously. The pros, obviously, are the opportunity to really make significant positive changes for your fellow citizens.
Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
Georgia Democrats are doing their own soul searching after a stinging election defeat, raising some questions about Congresswoman Nikema Williams' future as the head of the state party. In an open letter published last weekend, the political organization, the Young Democrats of Georgia, called for Williams to step down to make way for a new party leader. A handful of other state Democrats have reportedly echoed that message. Williams has supporters as well, including former state representative Eric Allen and Chatham County Democratic Committee Chair Aaron Whiteley. But Senator Ossoff, who is expected to face a heated re-election challenge in 2026, is rumored to be pushing for Williams to step aside. When reached by phone this week, his press secretary declined to comment on the record, and on Friday, the senator sidestepped a direct question on the topic.
Will you confirm that you are asking that she step down?
These are ongoing conversations among Democrats in Georgia. I don't have anything public to add today.
In a statement released by Democratic Party of Georgia Communications Director Dave Hoffman late Friday evening, Representative Williams seemed to signal she had heard the criticism and was open to some change, saying, quote, DPG Chair Representative Williams will send an email to the Georgia Democratic State Committee membership formally endorsing the idea of amending party bylaws to allow for a full-time paid chair position and calling for an executive committee meeting on November 23rd and a full state committee meeting on December 14th. As state Democrats figure out their next steps, legislators have now selected their new leaders under the Gold Dome. Senator Harold Jones II from Augusta will lead the Democratic caucus. He promises to push policy goals despite the substantial Republican majority in the chamber. And Representative Carolyn Hughley from Columbus will be the House Minority Leader. Both are new to their leadership positions. State Republicans, meanwhile, are going with an if it's not broken, don't fix it approach. Senator John F. Kennedy from Macon will once again be Senate President pro tem, working with Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. And Representative John Burns from Newington retains his position as House Speaker.
While much of the focus here in Georgia was on the race for the White House, there were plenty of other contests on the November ballot. A few remain undecided. One of them is for an at-large seat on the Atlanta City Council. 5 candidates were up for the seat, but none of them got more than 50% of the vote to claim an outright victory. So 2 of them are advancing to a December 3rd runoff. Both have education at the top of their agendas. Dr. Nicole Jones spent 30 years as a counselor and principal in Atlanta Public Schools, while her opponent, Ishay Collins, currently sits on the Atlanta Board of Education. Now it is down to a 2-week sprint to drum up enough support to win the seat.
You know, as a first-time candidate, you don't really know what to expect. But you do know that if you put in the time and the hard work and you try to connect with as many people as possible, your hope is that it will resonate and that people will turn out for you.
I think it's very key for the city to have an experienced leader that is knowledgeable in that work and have a proven track record of truly doing the work from a legislative lens, understanding governance, really truly leaning into community engagement and what that truly looks like to bring all voices at the table.
Okay, so here's an important date for you. Georgia's runoff election takes place Tuesday, December 3rd. And like a regular election day, polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There will be 5 days of early voting starting this Saturday, going through the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And we will have a full list of Metro Atlanta runoff races on the elections page at 11alive.com.
That's an 8.
Okay, first number's an 8.
That was the first of 20 dice, a random selection by the Secretary of State's office to determine which votes to audit. The purpose is to sample random batches of ballots, count them by hand, and see if the results align with the official machine count results. The audit must be wrapped up by Tuesday. And before the rolling of the dice, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger rolled out a proposed plan for nationwide election reform, saying what is good for Georgia, he says, is also good for the whole country. The Raffensperger initially laid out the plan to house GOP leaders last year. It involves citizenship verification, requiring photo identification, keeping voter lists free from ineligible voters as well. Raffensperger said all of this led to a speedy and efficient election process this year.
People were in and out in 10 minutes. It's a great voter experience. Does that have something to do with really the election integrity process? No. But voting should be fun. And I think voting should be fast. I think that this year, when we actually said you had to get the results posted so early, that was really important also.
Tomorrow, Raffensperger will address election administration reform as a guest of the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C.
Whether you're gay or straight, black or white, you're deserving of a champion.
When we come back, hear from newly elected House Representative Bryce Berry. At just 23 years old, he's about to take a seat inside the state capitol while keeping his other role as a school teacher. He tells us what will top his agenda under the Gold Dome.
It just kind of screams browsing and hanging out with a coffee and looking for a new book.
Later, our voice of the voter takes us to Virginia Highland, where this bookstore owner shares what is motivating her moving forward.
Well, there is a new generation of lawmakers in the country as Gen Z has officially entered the chat, as they would say. 23-year-old Bryce Berry, a Democrat, took on incumbent Misha Maynor after she switched parties in the 56th State House District, and he won by a pretty large margin. Well, now he has a seat at the Capitol, and he's a full-time middle school teacher, a recent Morehouse grad, who is eager to bring a fresh perspective to the state legislature. How are you feeling right now in this moment? You have a seat at the table.
I feel great. I mean, it's such a historic moment for Gen Z and for my generation that has always had a voice. Gen Z has been the fuel of the movements that we've had for justice in this country. But now we have a vote, and I feel that weight on me for our generation, also for the weight for teachers that, again, have never been able to serve in the state legislature until about 3-4 years ago. And now teachers have a vote as well.
And I want to ask you about your background a little bit, because you came here from a parent-teacher conference, so you are actively serving our kids here. Why did you want to even run for office in the first place?
Well, that's a great question, and I get the question most often. I'm 23 years old, and so when I decided when I was 22 last year, and just got to start off my career. I have a girlfriend who I know would love for me to be with her more often than I'm not on the campaign trail. But it was my students, really. I teach 7th graders, and 7th graders are going through a moment where they're asking a lot of questions. They're asking a lot of questions about why is rent so high? Why is healthcare not affordable or not accessible? Why is my school different than the school that's 5 miles down the street? I have students that are homeless, students whose parents work 3-4 jobs just to make ends meet, students who have unfortunately been victims of gun violence. And they're looking to us as a state for answers to their questions.
When you were going out there campaigning, what was that #1 issue that people came to you saying that they want to send you to the Gold Dome to change this for me? What was that #1 issue?
It was so funny that it varies by household, but overwhelmingly what I heard is affordable housing. Rent is too high, mortgages are too high, interest rates are too high. We need to make opportunity more accessible to folks. This is a district that has Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, Georgia Tech, Georgia State. We have over 300,000 folks that come to our state every single year wanting to stay in Georgia and produce in Georgia. But the reason that college students leave the state is because housing is just too high.
When you get into state legislature, session is called, are there any policies in regards to affordable housing that you would like to see passed?
Let's just talk about blighting. Mayor Dickens has passed a blighting law in the city for the city of Atlanta, which I think should be the model for the state. And I'm ready to work with state legislators on that as well. I think we need a statewide model because blighting doesn't just hurt urban communities, it also hurts suburban and rural communities as well. And this is a statewide issue of developers, most of the time from out of state, that are coming into our communities, offering to develop land, do this and the other, and they just don't. They just leave it. And they just leave it to collect dirt and trash and so much more, and that causes a strain on the community.
As you know, when you enter your role in the state legislature, you are of a minority, a Democratic minority there. Right. How are you planning to reach across the aisle to your colleagues to try to get something done when it comes to gun violence in schools?
Well, I think it's the benefit of having a teacher in the State House, to speak from that lived experience every single day. No one's there right now that can speak to lived experiences where our students that walk into school every single day, or speak to experience as a teacher. I pray every day for my students and for the surroundings and for the school building, because I know that this could be the final day. And that's an unfortunate thing. And so I plan to be very vocal approaching my Republican colleagues with those experiences, with me telling them my prayers I have for my students, telling them the experiences of students that have had family members that lost to gun violence or have been victims of gun violence themselves. It's not a normal thing, and we cannot continue to believe that this is normal. I'm all for solutions. Speaker Burns has said he's probably going to introduce a school safety bill. I'm waiting with hesitant eyes to see what that might be, because we know that all solutions to school safety are not the true solutions to school safety. The issue is just the guns. The issue is the guns. And we have got to be vocal in sharing the pain of families and of students. And, I want folks to feel the pain. It sounds dark, but I really want folks to feel the pain. They need to feel the weight of what they're doing and the weight of their inaction.
And I know you mentioned about Speaker Burns' proposal, which I believe he says that he is willing to continue to look at. It was just a proposal. Would you be open to working with them on, I guess, in your point of view, improving this existing proposal? Do you think the existing proposal is not enough?
Well, I've always said I will work with whoever, whenever and however to get things done for my community. And so, yes, I offer my support to Speaker Burns in this effort. Speaking as a teacher, school safety is important to me. And so it does need to be better. We cannot over-police our students into safety. We also cannot arm teachers. Those are not true solutions to gun violence. And so I will work with them and be a partner on them on this issue of school safety, but understanding that, the non-starter is arming teachers. A non-starter is over-policing our students that are already, especially in Black and brown communities, already over-policed.
You can catch that full conversation on 11alive.com. Still ahead, we hear from the voice of the voter. But first, we will dive into the week that was with Atlanta Journal-Constitution politics reporter Greg Bluestein. And our roundtable, you're watching The Georgia Vote. Time now for our politics roundtable, and we are joined by a very special guest today. We are welcoming Greg Bluestein from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and co-host of Politically Georgia. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I want to start with this, Greg, the election fallout across the country, but bringing it back here in Georgia. Democrats doing a lot of soul searching right now. What are they looking for in a leader in general?
Well, I think for one thing, Democrats are looking for someone who can do that job as chairman or chairwoman of the party full time, devote their entire attention to it. That's what we're hearing from local Democrats in increasing fashion. Also, they're looking for a different approach. There's a lot of talk about the traditional Democratic messages of preserving abortion rights, expanding Medicaid. Those will never change. But looking at more populist views, looking at things that can resonate with voters more. That's what I'm hearing more and more from Democratic officials and activists who want a more aggressive approach towards this election.
When you win a big election, every decision in hindsight looks like it's gold-plated. And when you lose, there's so much soul searching and so much micro-analysis of every decision along the way. Is this in some ways routine in the political ecosystem?
It is. We've seen this dance before. We've heard this before, and we'll hear it again. But look, when you look at Donald Trump's victory in Georgia, it was so resounding. It wasn't a huge margin. It wasn't a landslide. But the fact that 130 plus counties, about 135 of Georgia's 159 counties, moved further to the right, it showed you how dominant that victory was. And it's why Republicans are riding high and Democrats are searching for a new way to get across to voters.
We've covered Georgia politics for long enough to remember when it was surprising to see Georgia as a battleground state. Now it's kind of a stalwart. Will that continue into 26, 28, and beyond?
Georgia is going to be at the center of the national spotlight again in 2026 when there's an open governor's race, when Senator Jon Ossoff might be the most targeted first-term Democratic senator in the battleground landscape.
How tense is that race going to get?
It's going to be very tense. Yeah. Jon Ossoff has proven time and again he can raise a lot of money. He's on message. He's showing that he can work across party lines. He's going to use a lot of the same tactics and strategy that helped Senator Raphael Warnock win re-election just 2 years ago. But there'll be a number of Republicans looking for that seat, and chief among them might be Governor Brian Kemp, who has a big decision to make in the next few months about whether he's going to challenge Jon Ossoff.
Governor Kemp's seat is going to be open. People will slowly start putting their names in the hat for what they want to be in that seat or the senator's race or even some down ballot races. What do you have your eye on, Greg?
Yeah, well, we're expecting Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones to run. Attorney General Chris Carr could run. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger could run. There's a long, long list. On the Democratic side, the big question is whether Stacey Abrams goes after it a third time. But what we're hearing this time around is that other Democrats who are looking for that seat aren't willing to step aside. They want to make this a fight. And so Congresswoman Lucy McBath and DeKalb CEO Michael Thurmond are just two of the names we're watching for that race.
2026 is going to be a big one. But in 2025, just in a few weeks now, a new legislative session is set to begin under the Gold Dome. What are going to be some of the hot ticket items that you're watching for in terms of bills that will come up for a vote?
I mean, one of the first bills we're watching is farmer relief. Agriculture relief from Hurricane Helene, $6 billion estimated damage to the agriculture industry. But of course, we're also watching for hot button culture wars issues. Yeah. A lot of Republican leaders are saying they want to stick to economic pocketbook issues that are widely popular with voters, but we do expect more transgender measures limiting how transgender girls can compete in high school sports.
Will Georgia lawmakers be able to get bills passed, or will it be an acrimonious session?
I think it'll be both. The broad majority of bills that do pass under the Gold Dome are widely compromise bills. They're unanimous bills in many cases, but there will be a few of these measures that are really hot button that will tend to get most of our attention.
We will be keeping a close eye on it, of course, as will you. Greg Bluestein,
Thank
we
you,
appreciate it
Greg.
very much. Stay with us. Next, find out what is now driving this bookstore owner in Virginia Highland as she turns the page after a tumultuous presidential election. She's our voice of the voter, and she's coming up next. Change is on the way as America prepares for President-elect Trump to take office once again. A new president, of course, means new policies that have real impacts on real people like you. And we are working to make sure that you remain at the center of the political conversation. After all, you cannot have the Georgia vote without Georgia voters. This week, we head to Atlanta's Virginia Highland neighborhood to meet bookstore owner Sandy Huff.
This is Virginia Highland Books, and we opened a little over 3 years ago. I was a stay-home mom, had no intention of not being a stay-home mom, doing anything else, but as soon as I saw the space, this should be a bookstore.
And in your mind's eye, is this what it looked like?
Yes, pretty much.
What's the secret to a great book that connects with people?
I think it has to pull you into a different world or just into something else that you kind of forget everything else.
We just had a big election. When you went to cast your ballot, what were you most worried about?
I'm worried about freedom of being able to get, any book you want. I'm worried about banning books. I don't want that to be growing. It's already kind of out there. I think we all need to be able to read. I'm concerned about, right now, like Harry Potter, Voldemort, like for me, Amazon, that's like the word we don't say. Definitely it's a struggle for us to compete. It's kind of all bookstores. We're all kind of at risk of that. So I'm concerned about what's going to happen if they're going to be given free rein after the election. Big business being supported and small business kind of left by the side.
What do you hope the new Trump administration does when it takes office?
What I hope happens is that there is a way to find common ground. I don't know that there is, but I would love to be able to see a way for the parties to come together and solve problems.
We always end with this. What are you optimistic about?
No matter who is in power, I'm optimistic about the individuals. I just got done, I was working selling books at a conference for medical colleges. I left very motivated and excited about so many people who are just trying to do such good things. And I don't think that changes depending on who's in power. I think there's always everyone, the majority of people are good people and want to make a difference.
And as always, our thanks to Sandy Huff for sharing her perspective following a big and tumultuous election. And of course, thank you for watching us today.
Yes, we hope to see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote.